Welcome to the Migration Report, brought to you by the folks at the Up Duck Podcast, in partnership with the Wisconsin Waterfowl Association. Together, we'll bring you weekly bird activity reports from the various regions across the state of Wisconsin. Welcome back to another episode of the Migration Report. Today is October 27th. And we are bringing you the latest happenings from across the state of Wisconsin. We've broken it up into 4 regions: the Northwest, Northeast, Southwest, and Southeast. And then we also will wrap things up this week with a quick conditions report from Saskatchewan to get an idea of what's happening and what's coming down the pipe here from a macro standpoint. Now, before we get into those reports, right, we do have contributors that are stationed all across the state of Wisconsin. If you are interested in becoming a contributor, please reach out to UpDuck on any social media platform, and we will start the conversation there. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and jump into our first report, which is coming to us from the northeastern part of the state, where wind has really been the story. So we've had really strong winds, right? So if you're open water hunting on the bay, that's been a really tough. Water levels are also down more than a foot from last fall, which makes it an especially challenging time as a hunter if you're hunting from the shore as well. So overall, really tough conditions the past week here in the Northeast for open water. From a bird standpoint, right, we do have some divers that are starting to build in redheads, cans, bluebills. We should see goldeneyes goldeneye should start to show up here over the next couple of weeks. The challenge right now, because we don't have a huge push of birds, fresh birds in, is birds going stale. So that's also a big challenge there on the bay for your open water hunters. Further inland, the northwest wind earlier in the week seemed to bring a small push of fresh ducks. However, contributors noted that bird numbers still feel down for what it feels like typically for late October there. As you'd expect, pressure is super heavy on the weekends. It's much more manageable during the week, and that goes for open water as well as inland hunting. If we shift over to the northwestern part of the state, early in the week, this past week, the weather looked really promising. Cloudy, cold, windy, right? We had strong northwest winds, even a little rain-snow mix. By Thursday, though, things had warmed back up. And by the time we got to the weekend, we had those dreaded bluebird skies. We did seem to get a fresh push of new birds in on the northwest part of the state. More geese, lots of geese, right, in town on the rivers. The mallards that were observed looked a lot more like migrant birds than locals. Did have a few divers on the northwest as well, redheads, ringnecks, some hooded mergansers. Though it doesn't quite feel like the big push has hit yet. We did have one of our contributors who was over in Minnesota, over at Mille Lacs Lake, and noted that was loaded with divers earlier in the week. So hopefully it's just a matter of time and maybe one big weather push before that hits in Wisconsin here. Hunting pressure in the Northwest seemed to be down, right? Fewer shots, fewer trucks at the launches, which if you're a midweek hunter, right, if you're able to get out during the week as opposed to on the weekends, that makes things really nice for you. You might be the only person out on the spot you're actually hunting. Down in the southeast part of the state, hunting pressure's been the story, was the story for most of the week. Weather was a lot calmer, clearer skies, a lot of wary birds that seem to know exactly where not to be. We did have a few hunters earlier in the week that managed some solid mixed bags. By midweek, things have really dropped off. Weekend, it was tough. It was real tough. What it felt like in the southeast part of the state was, it felt like local birds took advantage of that west-northwest breeze and maybe slipped a little bit further down the flyway, and we just haven't had the fresh push of birds in behind them yet. A little bit further south in the southeastern part of the southeastern region, we had what appeared to be woodies heading out the door as well, right? We had midweek report of seeing a good amount of wood ducks. By Saturday, they were gone. They weren't there. which, right, that's less birds, and woodies have been the predominant bird from most of these regions up to this point throughout all of our reports. If we head southwest, we wrap things up in the southwest now. Things felt like fall again in the southwest part of the state. We had cooler temps, some morning frost, some steady wind, especially along the river. Water levels seemed, according to our contributors, still seem low for much of the region. Bird report was mostly local birds, though, right? We had some migrators trickling in. Again, nothing major yet. Goose numbers, right? They just keep climbing. Puddle ducks, right? Our mallards, our gaddies, they're hanging around in decent numbers. However, they're getting really stale. So other reports off the river mentioned teal, a few ringnecks as well, and a few redheads being taken a little bit further north. Hunting pressure is lighter during the week, right? That's the theme, right? Lighter hunting pressure during the week, and then real heavy on the weekends. And the birds seem to be really good at finding quiet spots to hide once those crowds show up, which probably doesn't surprise many of us as hunters. Now, if we zoom way out and we look up into southern Saskatchewan, right, there's a really similar story that's happening there. One of our contributors was up there hunting and reported unseasonably warm temps, right? Highs in the mid-50s all the way to the mid-70s with sunshine and strong south winds, which is not the recipe for pushing fresh birds down to us in Wisconsin. You know, from a bird standpoint, a lot of mallards, Canada's, a few snokies were mixed in. And the big thing is, right, up in Saskatchewan and southern Saskatchewan, where this contributor's at, they need a big push of weather to push birds in there. And we need that push of birds or that weather to push those birds down to us. So we're all waiting for that same thing. That's really the theme across the board this week, from Saskatchewan down through Wisconsin, right? We just need that fresh or that weather front to really push in fresh birds. And so really we sit and wait. And this week I'd expect maybe some migrators to keep trickling in. But if your hunts have been quiet lately, no, you're not alone. That was common for most of our contributors across the state. However, once that next front comes in and we're all watching intently, because I watched weather this morning and wasn't looking great for southeastern Wisconsin, things should really be good though, right? We just had on our long form podcast, we just had the game bird ecologist for the Wisconsin DNR on. He noted that this week and the first 2 weeks of November are generally the best waterfowl hunting this state has to offer. So be ready, keep your eyes to the skies. Things can turn any moment for us. That's it for this week on the Migration Report. Make sure you do hit subscribe so that way next week when the next episode drops, you get it pushed right out to you and you can tune in and see what's happening. And as always, a big thank you to the Wisconsin Waterfowl Association for helping make this Migration Report happen. For all the hunters out there, good luck, shoot straight, be safe, and we'll see you all next week.